Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. This is 2.5 in favor of the Broncos at home. 42.5 is your total. Steven, it's the Josh Dobbs show, continues to roll on, and it is a Broncos team that has looked much, much, much better over the last month of the season. There's just no denying. And I said this leading in when I had a Broncos ticket and all these things. Like, we have clowned on Russell Wilson on this very podcast. I have clowned on Russell Wilson on other podcasts. I have clowned on Russell Wilson for the last couple of years. With the quarterback play that's in the NFL right now, Russell Wilson is a top 10 quarterback. And like, that's just all there is to it because the quarterback play is so bad right now in the NFL. And so the question becomes, on the road, at altitude, 2 weeks into town, does not look like Justin Jefferson's going to be back. Does look like KJ Osborne is, though. Can Josh Dobbs do it again? That's the question.
Yes. Yes, he can.
Did you play the money line? Did you take the points? What did you do?
I've been begging for this to touch 3 all week. I don't think we're going to get there. I would love a Vikings +3. So I just teased it at this point. A couple other good teaser options this week. So I have Minnesota up to 8.5. I wouldn't shock me in the least if they win this game. I mean, that had to be the most fraudulent win of the year for the Broncos the other night. Minus 2.9 yards per play differential against Buffalo in that game. They get the miracle of all miracle defensive performances in that game, and they did nothing with it to the point where they still almost lost the game. Like, minus 2.9 yards per play usually means you lose the game by multiple touchdowns. So I don't buy this Broncos offense in the least. I do buy that the drop off from Kirk Cousins to Dobbs, even without Justin Jefferson, is not nearly as big as what we all thought it would be. Small sample, mind you, but at least with Dobbs in Minnesota, he's got an expected completion percentage of 70%. And that's not me giving Dobbs credit. That's me giving Kevin O'Connell, who I think might be the best coach in the NFL, or at least on the short list. And also the ability of the receivers to create separation. So if his floor, when the ball comes out of his hands, is for the ball to be completed 70% of the time, it's a pretty good starting point for your offense. And on the flip side, if everybody is going to give the Broncos credit for their defense being healthier and playing better after both of these teams started 0-3, well, since that 0-3 start, the Minnesota defense is 4th by EPA. Denver's defense is 17th. Minnesota's defense is 11th by EPA. Denver's is still in the tank near the bottom of the league. So this line, if you take away home field advantage, is still implying the Broncos are still a little bit better than the Vikings. I completely disagree with that at this point. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Adam, we see the Denver come out of the bye last week, and I was like, let's see if Sean Payton still has his fastball, right? Like, what's going on here? It's one of the things that, like, it seems to me, for whatever reason, he does not want to do with Russell Wilson, which is one of the things that we have praised Russell Wilson on for, like, basically his entire career, is throwing the deep ball. And, like, they just don't throw the deep, like, they don't throw it. They never press it downfield. They don't throw any sort of deep balls. They don't have any explosive plays in this offense. And when you have, like,
trying to make him Drew Brees. He's trying to make him Drew Brees.
Yeah. When you have zero explosive plays, like in today's NFL, it's pretty tough to win and maintain and stuff like that. 42.5, you can take this 2.5 up to 8.5 if you wanted to do that with the Vikings. There's a lot of different ways you could play this one. What say you?
I have to start by not letting Russell Wilson as a top 10 quarterback slide by. That's wrong. Russell Wilson is not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. So I'm going to go down the list with you, Matt, and I'm going to tell me where to stop with guys that you would take in front of Russell Wilson. All right. Okay. I'm pretty sure we're clear on Mahomes. I'm pretty sure we're clear on Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Dak, Tua, Goff, Herbert, Lamar, Stroud. We're good there so far?
Yeah, I mean, long-term Stroud, obviously. I mean, like, that's a coin.
This week you need a win. Do you want Stroud or Russell Wilson?
Come on.
Dude, it's not as close as you want this to be.
It's negligible. I mean, like,
oh my God.
Like y'all are like buying into a guy that like gets to throw 50 times a game and like does whatever. I mean, like Stroud's been great. Don't get me wrong.
Why isn't
But,
Russell Wilson throwing 50 times a game?
Well, obviously the game plan. I mean, have you not seen what they've got? Have you? It's horrible. Like I think Sean Payton. I fully believe Sean Payton lost his fastball when he was.
I don't think he trusts Russell Wilson.
Like I don't. I think. Well, I mean, you have to call plays. You have to call plays that are like somewhat in 2023 NFL, and like they don't do it. Like, it's a train wreck.
But at some point, Matt, that's now 3 head coaches who have said, I'm not going to open up this offense for Russell Wilson, right? And we know who Pete Carroll is. He doesn't want to open up the offense. And we had the 1/2 season of Russ cooking. We had Nathaniel Hackett. Now we have Sean Payton. And I'm not here to defend Pete Carroll's teams. I'm not here to defend Nathaniel Hackett, but at some point to me, it's a trend that Russell Wilson isn't being allowed to be the same wide open quarterback that others are being allowed to be. And by the way, to go down the rest of that top 10 list, I didn't include Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence in there either because they are down below in some of the advanced metrics. I'm just saying I can't get to the point of Russell Wilson being a top 10 quarterback, and that factors into the handicap that I have this week. I think this thing is not as good of an under as Buffalo Jets, not as good of an under as Washington Giants, but pretty close. And that makes the 8.5 points pretty valuable to me with Minnesota. I'll give you this word of caution. There is not a quarterback in the league who has a bigger gap between interceptions and turnover-worthy plays this year than Joshua Dobbs. He has 5 interceptions and 17 turnover-worthy plays by Pro Football Focus. And you have a Denver defense that against 2 elite quarterbacks recently has looked pretty good in going against Mahomes and going against Allen. So there is a bit of concern there that at some point, what is wrong with Joshua Dobbs comes home to roost. Even if it does, look what happened last week. I'm going to point to one drive specifically. They get the early turnover to the Denver Broncos against Josh Allen, the Bills, right? What does Sean Payton do, to Matt's point? Run on 3 consecutive plays in plus territory, and then a quick take the field goal. So when I look to handicap the total for this game, I don't even trust that if Joshua Dobbs turns into a pumpkin, that Denver's necessarily going to turn it into points.
Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty banger of a teaser leg. I mean, even if Denver like kicks a last-second field goal, like, is there any chance in the world Denver wins at margin? I mean, like, again, we get it. There's always defensive scores and all the special teams and I mean, like, but we can't predict that. So
that's the only way, right? What Adam just said, that the turnover-worthy plays happen and he turns into a pumpkin. You know, it is a bit of a ticking time bomb in that way. That's really the only way I could see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Jefferson had been back, this is just a smash spot, right? I mean, like, for sure, but it doesn't look like he's going to be back out there. So I think it's a pretty banger of a teaser leg. You get this thing to 8.5. Broncos aren't beating anybody at margin. It's just like under any normal handicapping circumstance. Now, yes, if they get a pick six or a strip sack or something, sure, they could win it, whatever. They could win at margin, but like that's not something that we can predict or handicap. So like at what we can factor in, I don't see them winning at margin.
And in your defense, asking the question about whether Russell Wilson is still a top 10 quarterback is more a comment about just the state of quarterbacks overall in the NFL at this point, trying to find 10 guys that are pretty good, right? I mean, the bottom half of quarterbacks are so bad, right?
Yeah. With the injury situation, everything too kind of plays into that.